Subscribers to NewOrleans.Football get all of our analysis and extra podcasts every week, the walkthrough video, and so much more. Make sure you sign up today to get all of the free agency coverage or the coverage that doesn't happen and telling you what doesn't happen, what that means. Whatever it might be, we got all of it for you. Sign up today. Use the code NOF to save 20% on your first payment. Welcome back to another episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. We are coming to you from our studio on Veterans Memorial Boulevard. We are next door to Matt Bauer. So if you need a new car, make sure you come up here, check out the Ford dealership, get a new car, get the best customer care, get the best prices. And if it's not a Ford, any type of car you want, Bauer's has a dealership for you. We got a good show for you guys today. We're going to get into everything going on with the team in free agency, the latest on Chase Young, what the Saints need to do to get better, if they are getting better, and what that means, and so much more, coming to you right after this quick word from our great sponsors. The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. Are you looking for the perfect engagement ring? Look no further than Friend & Company Fine Jewelers' new engagement salon. This new area houses a wide selection of engagement rings to choose from in all cuts, sizes, and colors. Their experienced staff offer 5-star customer care to help you find the perfect ring to express your love. Visit their new engagement salon today. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, the perfect ring for the perfect moment and also for the perfect person. 7713 Maple Street between Adams and Burdett Street. 504-866-5433. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Check them out at friendandcompany.com. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. All right, let's get into the show. All right, let's get into our lead topic presented by Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, the official jewelers of the New Orleans Saints. They have a great engagement salon, so make sure you go and check that out. They got the small rings to the big rings. All of them are beautiful and elegant, and all of them are priced in various ranges that are affordable to anybody looking to ask that someone special to spend the rest of their life with them. So make sure you go and check them out before you take that step. They'll get you right. And while you're there, check out their Florida Lead necklace and earrings that you see on our screen there, especially priced for our NOF audience. The earrings are priced at $1,100 and the necklace is $1,350. Make sure you check them out and tell them that NOF sent you. All right, let's get into our lead topic here. The Saints added Cedrick Wilson, Nathan Peterman, and Stanley Morgan Jr. They're showing that their spending restraint is a very, very real thing, to put it mildly. And they went pretty deep down the list to add some of these guys. Nathan Peterman was a little bit of a surprise. Cedrick Wilson, I don't think that was a name at the top of a lot of lists. You watch him, though, and there's a lot of stuff that is good to see. Stanley Morgan Jr., I think he's probably the special teams guy to come in and compete, and they've actually done a good job on identifying those guys, and they end up typically having roles on the team. But first things first, is this it? Is this all they're going to do?
I'm not saying that the Saints are trolling their fan base, but if they were, this might be what it looks like doing this in the first week of free agency. Look, these are the kind of guys who get added to NFL teams any other time of year, and it's fine. All three of these guys could make the 53-man roster. Peterman, I think you hope he's the third quarterback at best, maybe a practice squad guy. You mentioned the name Jake Luton. They've had him around for the last couple of years. Nobody batted an eye. Stanley Morgan Jr. could absolutely be. I mean, he was with the Bengals. He played in the Super Bowl as a key special teamer, blocking receiver. Maybe he could be as much as Traquan Smith, and Cedrick Wilson could be more than Traquan Smith. It's just that people, there was a tweet last night where it was like, hey, late night receiver news. The Bears have traded for Keenan Allen. Who was the other one? Some other major signing. The Chiefs have gotten Hollywood Brown, and the Saints added Cedrick Wilson Jr. So it falls really flat when these are the names we're seeing. They all belong on a team. But, yeah, we're seeing spending restraint. I mean, we've said this all week long. There still could be a move or two where the Saints spend real money. But if they don't, this is what a lot of people claim to have wanted from the Saints. I don't think this is the Saints are broke, the cap has finally caught up to them. I think the Saints are finally trying to catch up with the cap, and they're trying to like resist the urge to go overpay for some shiny new toy while still putting a competitive roster out there. And I'm not excited by it, but I can't argue with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I watched Cedrick Wilson this morning, and I liked a lot of the stuff I actually seen from him. So, I'm not saying that it's like the answer. This should be all they do at the position, but he does do a lot of things well. Like you mentioned Traquan Smith, like he blocks really well. He makes contested catches. He has much better body control than
can play in the slot, which is the void they have. Yeah.
He has much better body control than Traquan Smith. Like I tweeted like 3 plays out where you just kind of see him like making movements with his body to make catches that you didn't see before. So I think there's some contested catchability. It's a little odd to me that he was like so productive in Dallas his last year there, 600 yards, then goes to Miami and it's like 250, 300 yards, whatever. I mean, it's tough to kind of fit in behind Tyreek Hill and Waddle. Like, man, they really get the ball to Tyreek. Like, there is a overdose on targets there. So it's understandable why, but then you watch and he's still making plays. So, I mean, I think he's a solid addition, like a wide receiver 4. Like, that's fine. I think you still go out and probably try to add another one, but I don't mind the addition of him at all. Stanley Morgan, like, it's just you gotta have guys on your team, and maybe he makes a team on special teams, maybe he doesn't. Which brings us back to Peterman, and what's your take on that?
I mean, I thought they were going to cite a veteran backup quarterback at the Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton level. We've seen the team operate that way in recent years, and so I just assumed they would. This makes me think Jake Haener is now the front runner to be the backup quarterback. Maybe there's another guy still to come that we haven't seen yet. But this has been a real head versus heart Saints free agency period where I was saying, as an analyst of this team, I don't think they should waste $1 on the 2024 team. So if they spent $6 million, $8 million, $4 million on a backup quarterback, that's only going to be here for this year just in case Derek Carr gets hurt, and then you're probably not making the playoffs anyway. That'd probably be money wasted. So I don't mind it. I wish it was Trevor Siemian or something like that people have good memories of. Nathan Peterman, unfortunately, is known for being the 5 interception guy, but obviously 5 interception in one game in his first career start. But obviously he's done some good things to stick around for a lot of years, and those last 2 seasons were with the Saints' current quarterbacks coach, so nobody knows better how well he fits. So, look, I'm not going to kill the Saints for adding these guys. Like I said, all 3 of these guys could be on the 53-man roster, but none of them are the boom. This team has been mega upgraded that we're hoping for. We can discuss them a little more. I like some of the things about Cedrick Wilson too. The thing about Cedrick Wilson that stood out to me is I remember that offseason. It was a pretty big signing. Like, he had done a lot of things in Dallas, and people were like, he might get a big contract. He got a really big contract from Miami. And then I think they traded, if I remember this right, they traded for Tyreek right after, and then drafted Jaden Waddle right after. And it was like, oh, man, if I had known they were going to do that, maybe I would have picked a different team. Maybe things would have been different. But there's obviously good football in his track record. I think we're probably going to, in pencil, project him to make this team for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would right now for sure. Before I get into my response to that, shout out to Larry Moore for the $10 in the chat, the super chat. Appreciate that, man. Hope you have a good Friday, too. Yeah, I mean, look, my thing with let's erase Peterman, all right? Because I don't want to talk about him in that sense, because I don't want it to come off as like things are so hot right now. But let's say they just brought in Jake Luton instead. They brought back Jake Luton, day 2 of free agency. Nobody really bats an eye, and I think in a different circumstance,
people still bat an eye if you sign Jake Luton on day 2 of free agency. But if he had never left the roster in the first place,
if it's a guy, Jake Luton type from a different team, day 2 of free agency, you bring him in. He has more time to learn your offense now. Yeah. I don't understand the timing aspect of it. That's a weird complaint to me. Like Brandon was talking about that when I walked in today. I'm like, why? Like, what's it matter if it's day 9, day 15, day 22, or day 2? Like, if you get him on day 2, you hand him the playbook on day 3, and now he has much more time and he's ready to run group 3 at OTA. So no, I don't have an issue with that at all.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I understand the fans' reaction. I mean, there's a Christmas morning element to free agency.
Sure, I get that.
If you get your socks when they're wrapped up in a Christmas present under the tree, you're disappointed. Sometimes new pair of socks are nice on March 12th, but you can't open those under the tree.
I mean, I get it, but I mean, I just don't see how having like more time is,
no, I agree.
like,
of course.
like logically a bad thing. But I guess if you give Chase Young and then, Jake Luton or whatever, like maybe it hits a little bit different. There isn't a frustration like, oh, this is the move. So I get that aspect with nothing else, but like analytically, like it just doesn't, whatever, moving on from that. But yeah, like let's say it's somebody else. Like I think you look at it and you say, oh, okay, Jake Haener's a backup quarterback now. That's a good thing. Like their 4th-round pick, and they traded up for him too, didn't they? So did they? Did they trade for him?
They did trade up for Jake Haener. I'll double check while you're talking, but I'm almost positive
I mean, you're in a position then where this guy that you invested something in, it appears that he's ascended to a spot in which he's going to be able to claim the job, but you also never want to just give a job to somebody. You want them to beat somebody out. I mean, I know this isn't like, on paper, the greatest competition in the world. Like Nate Peterman's stats are what they are. Like there's no talking around that. He's a surprising like long timer in the NFL. Like given what he's done when he's had the opportunity to play. But I think this speaks to maybe where Jake Haener is. To me, when I seen it, I was like, oh, Haener's going to be the backup. Like that's probably a good thing. Like he must have done something right, because I wasn't super impressed with him in the preseason, but they must have seen something, throughout the rest of the season where they're like, all right, it's your time to go do this. So I like that he's going to have the chance to do that. At least it looks like maybe that pick's going to hit on some level. So I think if it was just any other name, like it's looked at a little bit differently, but because it is, this person who's like famous for 5 first half interceptions and, his numbers being what they are, I think it creates a reaction. And I mean, that reaction's warranted. Like that's all you really know about him. So I get it. But then like talking about Peterman himself, it is interesting to me that this guy that was the quarterback's coach comes here after being with him in Chicago and says, I want him here. Like, I
must be good in the room. Must be. Yeah. I mean, look,
he's doing something.
They had Tyson Bagent last year, who I don't remember the order it went in. I mean, Peterman was their 3rd stringer practice squatter. Tyson Bagent, the rookie 6th-round pick undrafted, whatever Tyson Bagent was, became their backup and played really well as a backup. But that was their dynamic in the room. Justin Fields starting, Tyson Bagent backup, Nathan Peterman 3rd guy. And yeah, Andrew Janocko, the quarterback's coach, was like, yeah, I like having him in the room. So doesn't mean, yeah, this guy's the answer to anything, but who could give a better endorsement than the guy that had him in his room the last 2 years?
Yeah, this quarterback room, like who knows? It could end up being a burning, smoking disaster. But
if Derek Carr gets hurt this season, is in trouble.
Well, we'll get to that in a second for sure. But like if Haener is an okay backup and then Peterman's this guy that's like helping Derek Carr get ready on Sundays because that's his role and he embraces that and he's like somehow an asset to that, great. If he's someone that can help Chris Olave, understand what the quarterback wants and there's an extra set of eyes there for like Janocko and all these other people, great. Like maybe he's an asset in that role, but you almost have to assume he is, because like how else is he sticking around this long? Like he's providing something behind the scenes. But again, it's a tough sell. Like it's a tough sell knowing what we know. Yeah.
All right, but here's the main question that we started with. Is this all there is? We do not have a problem with these signings. These signings take place. You put 90 guys on the roster. This level of player comes in all the time. And I'm not saying this is what these guys will be, but nobody was excited when they added Isaac Yiadom. Nobody's excited when they added, I can't even think of other names like that, like guys who come in the middle of the season or anything like that. You fill your roster with guys like that all the time. But is that all they're going to do? And the other question is, does that make Chase Young a must? Do they have to get a headliner in this class, or can it all be window dressing?
I mean, it's tough. It's tough to say. Look, I mean, it feels like they need to do something. It feels like they need to address like one need. Like it feels like they must address one need. Like I think Cedrick Wilson scratches off one a little bit, but like that isn't at a level where you're like, man, this is good. It's taken care of. And like the fact of the matter is if they signed Chase Young, we would probably sit here and be like, yeah, that's settled. But like it isn't.
Not settled, but
everybody would kind of convince themselves. So like they got an answer there, and then like he might have one of those seasons. Like he has the Davenport ups and downs. Like you look at his track record. There's good seasons, bad seasons, nothing seasons. Good
games, bad games, good playoff games, bad playoff games. Yeah.
So like you'd sign him and feel okay about it, and then by October you might be like, ooh, like this is kind of a rough ride. So, but it would feel different. It would feel a lot different. The thing is like, I don't know if their roster's worse than last year right now, but they've done nothing to get better.
Correct.
Now, if Marshawn goes, like you've gotten worse, but like as it sits right now, like it just kind of feels like the same with a better offensive coaching staff. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about any of the stuff they've done. And the fact that they exist there, like, just rolling back for a second to the quarterback thing, like, I wanted them to go out and get the name brand backup quarterback because, like, there's the whole thing, like, oh, well, like, if he gets hurt and then, like, maybe there's this other guy and there's, like, competition and everything. But, like, the reality of the situation is, you know, you take a step back and you're like, all right, they did this. Why'd they do it? And it's like, yeah, like, Derek Carr's never going to not be the starter this year. Like, that's not in the cards. Derek Carr, as much as he got hurt last year, he never missed a start. And he's never really missed a start in his career, like, for injury. He stays on the field. It felt like he missed time last year, but he didn't. He missed snaps. Like, yeah. But here's, like, the thing that everything about this offseason has said to me is that there is an awareness about who they are. Like, they are being honest about who they are. And we all sat here, us, people on Twitter, they need to be honest about who they are. Yeah. They're being honest about who they are. And I think if you're a team that has Derek Carr as your starter and everything else is, like, excellent around them and you feel like you're going to win 12 games, I think you say, like, okay, let's go spend $9 million on the backup, because if Derek Carr gets hurt and the $9 million backup has to start 5 games, maybe you win 3 of them and you still make the playoffs. If Derek Carr gets hurt this year and the $9 million backup comes in, they're like a 6-win team. Like, you just aren't good enough. Like, you aren't good enough to, like, what are you buying insurance on at that point? Like, you are a mediocre team, and if your starting quarterback gets hurt, like, you're screwed. Like, you're just absolutely screwed. Like, I like the idea of having him around. I think watching the Saints since 2020 has put, like, a value on the backup quarterback that I think is, like, heightened, and there's just a true awareness of how quickly you can get to your backup. But, like, this is just kind of the season, I think. I think it's the reset. And if you are going to do the reset, at least you're telling a story consistently through, like, there is a consistent direction.
Well, I'm very curious to see. So that's the big question for me. If they're doing this, I'm going to applaud it. Like, let's see if they really do it. If they go and they're like, you know, they redid James Hurst's contract today in addition to the big savings they got from Ramchick. They're like almost $20 million out of the cap now. They do Alvin Kamara's contract and they get like $30 million out of the cap. And then they go and they just spend that all on 32-year-old guys or whatever. Then I'm going to be kind of disappointed in them. Like, oh, you let that money burn a hole in your pocket for like 1 week and then you couldn't resist it. But if they really do this, and then they like start, I'm going to do this math. We're really going to need to know what happens with Marshawn Lattimore, but I'm going to do the math on, I mean, if they start next year only $60 million or $50 million over the cap and maybe even only $40 million over the cap if it goes way up, and then maybe add a draft pick along the way somewhere, and they say, no, we're really doing this. Then I'm going to be like, all right, good, because we've always talked about, we kind of want to see, do you have a plan for the future? Do you have a plan for the future? And in the meantime, I almost like watching this team where they haven't mortgaged any of their future, but then we'll go into the season and we'll be like, winning would be sort of gravy and icing on the cake. I mean, they still have a talented enough team. We keep mentioning last year's Buccaneers as an example. Still have a talented enough team that it's like, all right, you've done all that. You haven't mortgaged your future. You've caught up with the cap a little bit. You've caught up on your draft picks a little bit. But, oh, by the way, you could still go and try to win 10 or 11 games against low expectations. I would kind of enjoy that atmosphere a little bit if they really do it. We'll see if they really stick to it, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's still it's the two parallels are like, if you're doing it logically, I like it, but like in the moment, it's like, man, this stinks. Like this stinks. Like I want to just do something, win games. Like give me the instant gratification, because like the promise of like the long burn, it doesn't necessarily lead anywhere either. Like you have to take advantage of it in the right way. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's kind of, you know.
Well, this is okay. So
like if you go out and get like Danielle Hunter, like it doesn't make sense.
To put these 2 points together, Danielle Hunter is exciting, but you have made a really good point that tearing it all down doesn't automatically work. Like, yeah, it worked for the Cincinnati Bengals, but there's a lot of teams that tore it all down, and the Chicago Bears have been trying to come back since Walter Payton in the 80s. You know,
the Jets.
And
they just lost their quarterback to politics.
What if Nate Peterman runs for vice president? But signing Joe Flacco this year would not have helped, you know, like the future. Now, signing Danielle Hunter, all right, maybe. And maybe he stays for 5 years or something like that. There's in-betweens. But, yeah, signing Joe Flacco would have just delayed whatever you're going to do in the future. So I get it.
I don't know, something about like being like cost conscious, mediocre. It feels like there's a faster path back. Because like even now, like if you gave the Saints a ton of cap room and like good opportunity and they have a decent draft, like it feels like they could get back kind of quickly. Like just going from 0 to 100 is really, really hard. It's really hard to get there.
Cost conscious, mediocre. I like it.
Yeah.
I think they'll put that on the banners this year.
All right. Moving on to our money segment presented by Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union. Linebacker Willie Gay Jr. had some interesting comments about how he doesn't want to just play 26 snaps a game anymore like he did last year in Kansas City. And he actually played more like 40 per game. But they only signed him on a 1-year, $3 million deal worth up to $5 million. Could we have a real competition on our hands between Gay and Pete Werner for the starting Will spot?
I mean, he thinks so. People who have, you said people immediately texted you saying how much, that you heard from people from other teams or that follow other teams saying how much they like him. I had people reach out to me and talk about how much they like him and his potential. He chose, what really interests me about his comments is, he is just openly like, yeah, look, I get it. It's the business. They had another linebacker last year, and I was rotating in and out of the lineup. But, man, I don't want to go back to that where I'm only playing 26 snaps a game. That sucks. And I'm like, are you going to be doing more than that here? I mean, I think he said a lot of nice things about Pete Werner. He said how much him and Pete Werner and DeMario, if they're all on the field together, how dynamic they can be. But he knows he came to a place where they really only use 2 linebackers at once. And I kind of feel like he plans to beat out Pete Werner for that job. It doesn't mean he will. Doesn't mean the Saints brought him in here to do that. But I think this is a lot more like a competition for that job than, no, Pete's the starter and Gay's the backup than I originally assumed when I saw it come across the ticker.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I agree with you. I don't think they brought him in here with the idea of, like, we need to replace Pete Werner, but I think they brought Willie Gay in here with the idea of, like, okay, he could, like, and if he does, great. Like, you got a better player then for a small amount of money, and the other guy's on an expiring deal. I think they're looking at him as a possibility. Like, it's a high end third linebacker, and your other guy just kind of, if nothing else, like Willie Gay is going to light a fire behind Werner. I mean, like one way or the other.
Fire in this whole locker room. It sounds like with his
like Werner's going to feel it and work and ascend and get better and get to where he can be, or he's going to stay the same and Willie Gay is going to make it a real battle. But look, like if you put some competition between Werner and he has a great season, he's getting paid. So I think this is a win-win situation really for the team. Either way it turns out, I think you're going to get better at that position one way or another. I watch Willie Gay quite a bit. Yeah. I like a lot of stuff he does. I mean, definitely not a perfect player. He said that himself. I mean, I think there's times where, he just kind of, his instincts lead him to success, and sometimes they lead him there's kind of like a Quan Alexander quality to his game a little bit, like where boom or bust is extreme because I think there's a lot more boom than bust, but there is some plays where, he kind of, it's like a quarterback's like, on a bootleg, I'm going to peel off my guy and go after the quarterback, and then it's like, wait a minute, your guy's open. Like there's a handful of things like that, but like the plays in the run game are tremendous. Like there's a lot of big hits. He covers really well. Has a lot of range. I like him overall. I like the idea of him. I think he's going to be a great addition, whether he's well or he's coming in the Sam package, and he can blitz and he can cover and he can do a little bit of everything.
Number one on my list of wants, must, needs for this team was exactly this level of player at defensive end. They haven't gotten that yet. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But, yeah, this is the kind of player you want him to sign, a fifth-year guy with potential to be more at a budget price. You got to go to NewOrleans.Football for Nick's film analysis. You don't want to miss that. And if they keep signing players, we'll keep getting film studies if they'll just play ball. I also wrote up a lot of things that Willie Gay had to say yesterday, including one of my favorites. While he was explaining why he's so good at being a quarterback spy, and he said that he used to play that game growing up, scared to pick it up, where everybody would run around and you'd chase the guy who picked up the ball, and he goes, I was the one who chased you down.
Yeah. No, I loved hearing from him yesterday. Seems to have like a great attitude. Seems like a really like good guy. A lot of stuff we heard about him was like how good of a leader he is and all that stuff. I think that person, like it was plain, like as soon as that Zoom started, it was plainly obvious, like, why people like him. Like, there's a presence. He has a presence to him and, a warmth, and he's somebody that, I think if you're in the trenches with him, like, you want to get behind a guy like that because he just has that type of personality.
Well, he's the juice man. I mean, and it's funny that they just lost Malcolm Roach, who's, not only his personality, but his actual boombox was heard throughout the locker room. So now they've replaced him with the juice man in the locker room. Maybe he'll sit in that exact same spot in the corner of the locker room.
Yeah, maybe he will. Speaking of sitting in the same exact spots, we're going to hit this commercial break really, really quick. Quick word from our great sponsors, and we will be right back.
Are you tired of renting and ready to own your dream home? Contact Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, your trusted source for home loans. Our competitive rates and flexible terms can help make your home ownership dreams a reality. If you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, our experienced lenders are here to help. Our online application process allows you to apply on your schedule. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit us online at jeffersonfinancial.org to learn more. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience. Welcome back to our new studio on Veterans Memorial Boulevard. Our next segment is brought to you by Hardhide Punchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. If the Saints aren't going to rebuild their roster through free agency, they're obviously going to need some guys to take big leaps this year. Who is the one player you think they'll count on most to do that?
I'm going to let you have the obvious choice here. I'm going to go a little, especially if Cedrick Wilson is their biggest addition as sort of the physical pass catcher who can block and play in the slot, and they don't draft Brock Bowers in round one of the draft. It's got to be Juwan Johnson. Last year I was all in on predicting that Juwan Johnson was going to have a huge role with this team. I was touting him for fantasy articles. I really thought, we saw that connection in the offseason. I thought he was going to run some of Michael Thomas's routes when Michael Thomas wasn't on the field. And it just didn't really happen for Juwan Johnson until late in the season. Dennis Allen was challenging him. He admitted that. He was dealing with a little bit of injuries. So now that our expectations have dipped a little bit for him, maybe this is the year. Maybe he's one of those guys that blooms under the new offense, the new offensive system. The talent is there. Pass-catching ability is there. The big play ability is there. And I'll pair Foster Moreau in with him, too. I think Foster Moreau, we had low expectations for what he could be in this offense, but he was a red zone target for Derek Carr with the Raiders. He definitely put up bigger numbers in the Raiders offense than he put up in the Saints offense. There is young, still in their prime, guys with untapped potential at the tight end position, and I think if they are not signing anyone that is a clear upgrade as a pass catcher in free agency and don't go that route in round one of the draft, those two guys have the potential to play much bigger roles and have to play much bigger roles. That stands out to me.
Yeah, I agree with everything there. Like, they got to get better. I think they're going to try to add another tight end. I think so too. I think it's something that needs to be on their list of priority. But again, they aren't doing a whole lot of anything right now. So we'll see. I don't even see
anyone in free agency anymore that's like a clear upgrade. If it's not Bowers in round one of the draft, which, what are the odds that you can pick the one guy who's worthy of a top 50 pick and it's going to line up that way? Then it's a different conversation. But there's no obvious upgrades walking through the door short of that, I don't think. Yeah,
I agree with that. For me, it's got to be Trevor Penning. If Trevor Penning plays well, it's a cheat code. And he's working out at he's been working out this offseason. I talked to our friend Teron the other day. He said he met up with him a little bit, was talking to him. They work out at the same place. So there's going to be good tutelage out there at Duke Manyweather's camp, and that's where he's spending his offseason. If he comes back and he has that type of, if he has any type of growth to where he's just able to be on the field and not be a liability, it's a cheat code. Like, just as far as this list of needs, if you could tell me today that, like, you get just average play from Trevor Penning to a point where it's neither super positive or super negative, it takes a need off the board. And I think then you can, let's, team can be like, let's go do this and, get the tight end and get the pass rusher or whatever it is, or get the pass rusher and now you can get another wide receiver or whatever it is. It just takes a need off the board, and I think that makes your team significantly better, like just because you have limited resources. So if he can do that, I think it elevates the whole team significantly, but I can't bet on it.
We talk about the needs they haven't filled, and we think of defensive line and we think of offensive line as if two gaping holes. And those are the two that we're most concerned about with this team. Everything else can be a nice Cedrick Wilson level additions to fill that need, Willie Gay level addition to fill that need, that you don't have to break the bank anywhere else. You need another pass rusher. You need another offensive lineman. But we're talking about that as if Trevor Penning is not one of the 5 starting offensive linemen. He could fill that need. I mean, we don't predict he will based on what we've seen so far, but if he did, that would be huge. That would be one of the 2 giant gaping needs this team has this year. It's unbelievable how much I could be. I think the best case scenario to realistically hope for is the Cesar Ruiz sort of career path. He was kind of the big disappointment, fans' favorite target to hate on 2 years into his career. 3rd year, he had a nice breakout. Last year, he kind of settled in. He's, but enough to get that second contract. You just give me that career growth, I think it would be a big win at this point.
Yeah, just anything. The problem is you can't know that by, I don't know what the day of the drop is, April 22nd or whatever.
It's still my number one. I mean, at this rate, maybe I'm changing defensive end to my number one draft need, but and I'll tell you what, I just saw a mock draft, and I'm trying to remember who it was. It might have been Field Yates, our friend of the show, Field Yates, but Troy Fautanu, the guy from Washington, who everyone is saying a lot of people think he could play left tackle in the NFL, but if not, they think he could be a great left guard. I mean, that would be great because they kind of have a need at either spot, and if Penning pans out, then Fautanu can be your left guard of the future. But something like that, I would still go for it. Yeah.
I don't want to draft the left guard at 14, though.
No,
that's the problem, though. You don't know. So, you could draft him, and then it's 2 birds, 1 stone, and fine. I mean, Penning hits, that's fine. That's a fine outcome. But, yeah, again, April 25th to draft, there's just no way of knowing. You can't plan. So you got to plan as if he isn't going to be that.
Absolutely. Have to
regardless, unless, I don't know, there's somehow to get there's just no way to know. There's just no way to actually tangibly know until he's on the field, because you could have a great summer and then you get on the field and the confidence issues hit again. You just don't know what it's going to look like.
I will say this, and this means very little, especially because this current regime has not earned the trust of the fan base. But I mean, I remember when I first started covering the team, how they used to talk about Jonathan Sullivan. Longtime Saints fans will remember him as the all-time bust that they traded up for to get at number 6. And I remember how they talked about Stephon Anthony a lot more recently when Sean Payton was the head coach. They had definitely given up on those guys by year 3. They were like, that guy's not going to pan out. It's over. We are holding out no hope. People behind the scenes are holding out hope for Trevor Penning. They are really giving him this. I mean, Dennis Allen used the term clean slate at the Combine, saying maybe a new offensive staff, maybe a full year of health. They have not decided internally that there's nothing there. So hopefully there is not. Hopefully it still can happen.
We will definitely see. I mean, that's one of the more intriguing things of the upcoming season. Do you have any thoughts on Peyton Turner, Foskey, Alontae Taylor, any of them taking a big leap?
They're in that category too. I mean, if they don't make a lot of free agency moves, somebody from that group has to pop. If they trade Marshawn Lattimore, Alontae has to pop. Alontae's the answer to this question. If they trade Marshawn Lattimore, Peyton Turner and Foskey kind of feel like an either or maybe right now. And if both of them hit, great. It's definitely possible. I mean, they're in the Trevor Penning category in that we don't even count them as part of the solution right now. And if they just so happen to stay healthy and live up anywhere near their draft status, they would be cheat codes too.
Foskey feels like maybe the most likely one to hit because he just hasn't had the downsides yet. I kind of throw Alontae Taylor in the already has hit category. Yeah. Now, if they trade Marshawn, I think there's a lot on him to take a second step, but I would say he's the most likely one out of all the names we just said. Sure. But putting him aside, I feel like between Foskey, Turner, and Penning, we just haven't seen the downsides of Foskey yet. It was just one injury plagued season. Maybe he comes back and hits. If Turner plays a first rounder, it would feel like a cheat code.
That would be the ultimate,
yeah.
And Nick Saldiveri could be in this conversation too. You've mentioned a few times you're intrigued.
I'm intrigued.
he's one that I just can't believe. I mean, he got hurt, I think, in practice later in the season. I don't think it was in a game, but he had played very few snaps when he got hurt. But in the first 10, 12 weeks of last season, I mean, he just wasn't getting on the field either. I mean, they were going to they were putting in Cam Irving off the street, obviously at offensive tackle. They were going with Max Garcia. Like, I feel like if there was something there, he might have gotten a shot sooner, but he's going to have a full offseason now too. So, boy, it would be nice if any one of the names we just listed, it would go a long way toward filling those must needs on both lines.
I wonder if Doug Marrone didn't like young players a little bit, and I don't want to throw that on him. I don't actually know, but it just kind of feels like a little bit of a trend within that group. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes from there. All right, moving on to our Martin's questions of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbons, whiskeys, and more. Martin's, so much more than just wine. Check out their locations uptown and in Metairie. All right. First question from Hoodat Forever. He says he is okay with the team trying to fix the cap, but why did they sign an average quarterback to a huge deal if they weren't planning on going all in to win? If you have a mid-tier QB, he says, you have to be great at all other areas of the game. You can't penny pinch and bargain hunt. Their logic is backwards, end quote. How do you feel about that?
It's an extremely fair question. Like, we can try to answer this question, and there is an answer to this question, but I think this is how this is the most rational way to word what I think the entire fan base is feeling. Like, I think the fan base would be okay with rebuilding. I think the fan base would be okay with all in. But paying a lot of money for Derek Carr and then not really supporting him, and it's a tough place to live. I think part of the reason they signed Derek Carr to this big contract is their hopes were much higher last year.
Yep.
The NFL or the NFC as a whole, the NFC South for sure, was just there for the taking. I mean, they woefully underachieved last year. They should have been in the second round of the playoffs last year, just like the Buccaneers were. And then it would have been even more worth it.
Two 9-win teams won playoff games.
Yeah, three 9-win teams won playoff games. So they absolutely should have done more with him last year. I don't know if they would have signed him this offseason. But last offseason, there was even more on the table for them and in front of them. And I think this year they're hedging their bets a little bit. I think they can still win with him, but I don't think they're going all in to win with him now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I said a couple times, like, it's hard to see the direction of the team a few times. So I've worked on, this thought a few times. It's entered my mind. I've tried to figure it out a few times. The one thing I would just say, though, is that, like, it isn't an uncompetitive situation, though. Like, I don't think they intend to be uncompetitive.
No question. They don't. Yeah. How many negatives is that? They don't intend to be uncompetitive. Not at all. They want to win the division this year.
They want to win the division. They want to do it. They want to peel back. They want to stay good. But they just aren't going Super Bowl or bust. Like, and I don't know if Derek Carr I don't know. I mean, it's a fair question, though. Like, it is something where, you could see it going. Just if you're going to do it, tear it down. But, like, yeah, look, the Falcons
signing Cousins for $45 million a year helps put this in perspective. Carr at $30 million a year represents a notch below Cousins at $45 million a year too. I mean, quarterbacks cost money. I think we would all love to see the Saints draft one. I mean, if the Saints had a pick in the top 5 this year, I think that would be the plan. If they had a pick in the top 5 last year, I think that would be the plan. But you really have to make a choice. Are you at the $30 million level, which is now the Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, 17th highest paid quarterback in the league level, or are you dropping down to the absolute cheap level? And so it's not $30 million a year isn't all in anymore. The other interesting thing about Derek Carr, Mickey Loomis said this to us midway through last season. Even though he's in his young 30s, 33, I want to say right now, I don't have it right in front of me. They saw this as a guy who could start for 6, 7 more. Like, this isn't a 2-year solution. If Carr hit, and if Carr was the right fit, if Carr is the right fit, he could be part of the next generation of this team too. They were taking a shot on a guy that they thought still had some future years in front of him too.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, because, like, there's the half measure where they're at right now, where you're trying to do the competitive rebuild or whatever, and then there's the all-in approach, or there's the tear-it-down approach. it's tough to say with the right one is the one that works and the wrong one is the one that doesn't work. And you've kind of seen every which way kind of work. There's the Kansas City, keep your team good, go with Alex Smith, draft a quarterback. He turns out to be and you're just ready to go and win a Super Bowl every single year. Or there's the tear it down, get the similar quarterback like Houston and try to build the team to get there then. Or there's the tear it down, end up the Jets. There's the just keep going all in and win a Super Bowl with a mid guy, which we've seen, Baltimore do. Philly did it. Like it's tough. Like it's tough. Like whatever the perfect approach is to tear it down, get CJ Stroud and go. But like that's just such a rare story. So it's like chasing a lottery ticket. It's whatever works is the right thing and whatever doesn't work is the wrong thing. And it's hard to sit here and say because you could just keep this going and then you have a great draft and all of a sudden you're right there again.
2017. They have the bones for if we hit on. We also said the Detroit Lions when they hit on Penei Sewell and Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, another great example.
Often run it.
Yeah, like Jared Goff put everything around them.
They are keeping the bones of a team that can win right away if they start. But all of these plans, Cincinnati Bengals, I think even more than Houston because they went to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Every successful plan includes drafting well. 2017 Saints, Bengals, Texans, Lions, whatever you want to say, they all include drafting well, and that's what the Saints have to do, no matter what path they take.
Sometimes you need a blessing where Bryce Young is the number one quarterback, but the actual number one quarterback is the other guy. And sometimes you got to be lucky enough to not end up with the wrong guy. All right. Next one comes from Chris Olave. Stan, do the Saints have a bigger hole to fill at left tackle or left guard? I mean, I think the answer is there's a possibility with Penning, but left tackle is a bigger hole because it's a harder position to fill. It costs more. It takes more resources. You could draft your left guard and he could be great in the second, third, fourth round. Like it happens all the time. Usually your left tackles are very expensive or they come in the first half of the draft. There aren't a lot of sleepers there.
Yeah, we kind of hit on this too, especially like there's a possible interchangeable player in Troy Fautanu that could be a first-round pick. They had, James Hurst who's staying on this roster for another team, put him at guard or tackle depending on where the other guy hits. If Andrus Peat was still on this team, he could play guard or tackle. Like, it just opened my eyes to the fact that just give me one elite player. I don't care how you have to get him. I don't care how much you have to pay him. I don't care where you have to draft him. Fill one of those two spots with an elite player, and then I'm okay with just having one more need that I just got to get by at. So I would still draft a left tackle at 14 because it saves a lot of issues for the future too. We don't know Ryan Ramczak's long-term future. But if you end up getting an absolute stud at left guard, then it eases a lot of the burden on the left tackle. So I'd say one or the other is the answer to this question, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that to some extent. Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to keep covering free agency whenever it starts for the Saints. So at some point, they're going to make a move. Keep it locked here on our YouTube channel. We are with you guys every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And make sure you sign up for the website. Use the code NOF to save 20% on your first payment. That's at NewOrleans.Football /subscribe. All right, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.